to life.
He still takes the field? Yep. Love it. Get a good deep breath. Get ready to roll here. Only about one thing tonight, getting the W's, so gotta be around the end to do that. Get ready to roll tonight, boys. Let's go have some fun.
Don't get me any more fired up than I already am.
All the way to the checkered. You are fine. Nobody's got to run. Checker time, baby! Really proud of you, man. Drove your butt off tonight. We had the best car here, bud. Yeah, boys. Way to rebound. Great job. Great job, bud. Really good job. Appreciate you hanging in there with us all weekend. What a weekend. Good job. Thank you.
Best. All right, welcome back to Racing in the Draft. I had a Windows update that caused everything to not work correctly. All right, we're back. Sorry about that. Welcome to Saturday night. We've got a few races left of this season, and before we get it finished, we have to go to Talladega. Oh, wow. All right, this is going to be fun. This is going to be interesting after watching the Xfinity race earlier where Austin Hill again gets a win at a super speedway or drafting style track. Unbelievable. I would have thought he definitely would have run out of fuel, but he didn't. Either way, he still was not in the optimal lineup or in the top gaining lineup. So yeah, the stats hold true. Do not start cars starting in the top 10. It just does not work out. It really doesn't matter how it ends up going. But yeah, so we can eliminate 10 drivers right out of the bat. Just eliminate anybody starting in the top 10. Don't put them in your lineups. Every once in every 30 drafting style races do you get somebody in the top 10 that ends up making any money. So beware. But before we get to Dega, let's get back to Las Vegas, where you could do gambling pretty much anywhere now. This used to be the gaming capital of the world, and now online and most states have legalized gambling. So yeah, Las Vegas, I guess the home of gambling, we'll call it now, instead of the place where everybody goes to gamble. South Point Hotel 400, Casino 400, the optimal lineups from last week. Kyle Larson started in 6th, finished 2nd, leading 129 laps, dominating a lot of the race with 94 points. Denny Hamlin, who finished in 1st, did not lead a whole lot of laps. Started in 1st, finished in 1st. He almost made the optimal. He had 58.85 points, which probably, if you had him in your lineup, would have probably worked out somewhere. I'm not sure exactly what else you would have had to. I don't think you could replace him with Kyle Larson because they had 34 points, 36 points separating them. So really not sure, including Christopher Bell. I mean, you could have substituted Tyler Reddick out for somebody. Chase Briscoe, maybe. And even then, that was 12 points. But the optimal lineup, Kyle Larson, Chase Briscoe, Kyle Busch, Brett Keselowski, Austin Cindric, and Noah Gragson. 2 dominators or finishing positions, start to finishing positions. The other 4 were definitely place differential, where this week we will see almost all place differential. We will not see any dominators for this week. But last week we did, and the next week we will. Our optimal lineup challenge. Oh boy, it's getting close to at the top. Chase Elliott with 12, Kyle Larson with 11, Denny Hamlin with 10. I think it's really, honestly, probably Chase Elliott still to lose because of Talladega, but anything's possible. I don't think Kyle Larson makes the optimal lineup this week. Well, actually, he might. He does have some place differential this week. But either way, it's going to be really, really tight coming down to the end between two teammates, Chase Elliott and Kyle Larson, which ends up also probably being the two drivers that have the best opportunity for the most popular driver. So if you haven't voted for that, I think voting has opened and you can go vote for the most popular driver. Will Chase Elliott get his, I don't know, 55th in a row or whatever it is? And I don't understand why Chase Elliott is the most popular driver. I just don't get it. Honestly, he's boring. I think the only reason he gets it is because his dad got it for a lot of years, which I think is kind of dumb. I'm not even rallying for Kyle Larson to get it because Kyle Larson sometimes is a little bit boring too. Honestly, I think right now I would take Denny Hamlin or Ryan Blaney for the most popular driver. But Chase Elliott continually seems to get it. But we're not here to talk about most popular driver. We're here to talk about Draftkings and betting and fantasy and all that fun stuff. So that was last week at Vegas. It was a good race. Definitely a little bit different, which I kind of thought it would be. It usually is from Kansas, which was just a few weeks prior. Yeah, lot of place differential, more than I expected for the Vegas race. But either way, place differential will absolutely be the game for Talladega. So let's head to Alabama and Talladega Superspeedway. It is the largest track they run, at least in the oval formation. 2.66 miles, I think, is what it is. Let's see. Yep, 2.66 miles, 33 degrees of banking in the corners, which pretty much means if you run a lap by yourself, you don't ever have to let off the throttle. If you're running in the pack, it's a completely different story. And a lot of times because of fuel mileage, and fuel mileage is very important here because it signifies on how much time you would spend on pit road. So, if you've got a fuel tank that'll last you 40 laps, but if you ran 75%, you could run 45 laps or 50 laps. So you could run a little bit further, which would mean potentially less pit stops. But because of the way these stage breaks are going to happen, the fuel mileage is important because when you come in to get your last tank of fuel to get filled up, if you've been running 50, 60, 70% throttle, using less fuel means you will spend less time getting gas because tires are not usually something that is significant for this race. You still have to change tires, but because of stage breaks, you'll get new sets of tires, but you can easily not take tires. You can take tires at the end of stage 2 going into stage 3, and you just run those tires the rest of the race. They just don't wear. They're not significant enough. You can't make moves because of the pack racing that you would need tires. Where in the Xfinity race earlier today, tires did mean a little bit, but at the end of the day, not really. It was fuel. And I mean, honestly, I thought Austin Hill did not have enough fuel, and he really didn't. He coasted around after the checkered flag to get back to victory lane or the victory celebration. So, but either way, good for Austin Hill. He is the most dominant Xfinity driver when it comes to drafting. Whereas in the Cup Series, we don't really have a true dominant player when it comes to the super speedways and drafting style tracks. But either way, this race length is 188 laps. Dominator points, there are 131 of them out there because we'll have 50 or 60 changes for the lead. Laps led, nobody will probably lead much over 20. And most of the time, it's probably going to be 10. So laps led aren't a factor. Fast laps, because the person running beyond second has the draft, they're able to run faster than the leader of the race. So the fast laps will get spread amongst everyone. if you have one driver who has 10 fast laps, that's pretty significant. Typically, it's all single digits across the board, so that's not a factor either. So dominators don't matter. So place differential and finishing position do matter, but place differential with finishing position is the absolute key to this race. So other tracks to compare to, of course, is Daytona and then Atlanta. Atlanta is a little bit of its own drafting style track because they run more laps. They run 267 laps, and because tire wear has started to become a slight issue at Atlanta, you can see some dominator points coming into play, but because it's still a drafting track, usually it's still spread out. But year after year, as that track begins to age, we're starting to see where I think Atlanta will end up being its own, or more like a Michigan, um, as a way of you'll have people who will potentially dominate that race. And because of the amount of laps, it'll change the dynamic of how we will build the Atlanta races. But Talladega and Daytona are still pretty much straight up. It's finishing position and place differential. So finding the key to those two things is the utmost importance. Let's look at some optimal lineups from the previous Talladega races. So from the spring race, as we can see from here, the optimal lineup was nobody starting in the top 10 once again. The highest starting spot was 16th, William Byron, who finished in 4th, so had 12 spots of place differential. And as you can see over here, his laps led. He led 10 laps and only had 6 fast laps. Carson Hocevar had 10 fast laps and only 3 laps led, and they still did not score the most points out of everyone for the spring race at Talladega. And we had $800 left over. So keep in mind how much money is left over. And salary cap typically is not something that we will also need to be worried about. This is strictly place differential, and the fast cars will rise to the top, as they always do. And then if you can just avoid the big one or avoid the wrecks, honestly, that's what it is. The fall race from last year here at Talladega, as we can see, we did have Brad Keselowski, who started 13th, and William Byron, who started 16th, the two highest, but everyone else started in the 30s. And then finishing spots, we only had 4 drivers that finished in the top 5 finishing spots. So once again, finish up front and have the biggest place differential. We'll put you in there. $4,700 left over from that race. The spring 24 race, the highest starting spot to make the optimal lineup was 18th. We had 5 of the 6 drivers finished in the top 6, with one finishing in 13th, but they're all place differential once again. The most amount of laps led, 13 by Tyler Reddick. Fall of 2023, same thing again. We did have Ryan Blaney start in 10th and Kevin Harvick start in 11th, but this is the first 2 drivers that started close to the top 10 that ended up making the optimal lineup. But once again, laps led, 11 for Kevin Harvick was the most, $5,700 left over. The spring Dega, Ryan Blaney did start in 5th, finished in 2nd, and he did lead 47 laps. Like I said, every once in a while, you will have a driver that will end up be starting in the top 10, but it's not as often. Speak of that, Ross Chastain started in 6th, led 36 laps. Ryan Blaney started in 19th and led 31 laps for the fall 2022 race. But as a whole, you're much safer to take drivers who are not starting in or around the top 10. Usually it's in the 20s and 30s. And the same thing happened today at the Xfinity race earlier. So what does that look like? And if you happen to be paying attention to the highlighted stuff, this is kind of the most expensive driver and their points value that they got for DraftKings. And this comes into play when we start to put everybody on the calculator on, do we think that they can make the optimal lineup and how many points do they need to get to potentially make it there? Not a guarantee, but this is a pretty good idea of kind of a starting spot of who might make the optimal lineup when it comes to points. So 57, 55, 51, 53, 59, 52. But as you can see, everybody is in the 50s that make the optimal lineup. So kind of 50 is the baseline to go for when it comes to optimal lineups. Not the guarantee, but kind of a really good starting baseline. Somewhere between 50 and 55 points is what we need to aim for when we're building it up. Now, I've always talked about the top 15 drivers. That would be your core 15. And then I have a sub-core that's typically somewhere between 5 and 7 drivers, which would be my sub-core. So that would take me to about 22 drivers that I would run on a more regular basis. So my top 15, I'm going to probably run at least, close to 20%, all the way up to even 50%. My subcore kind of makes up somewhere between 5 and 15%. And then the other drivers, I just don't even bother with. Now, because it's Talladega, realistically, that kind of still plays the part. There are some drivers who are starting towards the rear that probably won't make it into your core or subcore or my core or subcore grouping, but they still may show up at the end. But on averages, they typically don't. Because if you go back and look, you can kind of see some trends, especially like the last few years. We've got William Byron. Let's see. Is there anybody else? Carson Hocevar twice. Ricky Stenhouse Jr. twice. Ricky Stenhouse Jr. a third time. Noah Gregson. And then we start to get into 2023. It starts to, some new names have popped up and gone away. I mean, Corey LaJoie's not in the Cup Series anymore. Kevin Harvick's not in the Cup Series anymore. But Ryan Blaney is there. The Penske's and the Fords are always good here. But honestly, it's pretty much all teams are good. And there are team orders, there are manufacturer orders that come out of who to play nice with, who not to play nice with, meaning who do you want to draft with and who do you not want to draft with. All right, so then our top 15 in points. So how do we come up with our core 15 drivers that we want to kind of focus in on, and where do they get their starting spots from? So we're taking out the name and their dollar amount. So it's just literally, where do you start? How well do you finish? And what does that correlate to the top 15 in points? So as we can see, the top 15 in points, not even one on average come from the top 5. 1.4 come from 6th through 10th. So on average, about 2 of the top 15 come from the top 10. Then it jumps dramatically from 11 through 20, where we have 4 drivers, 21 through 30, where we have almost 5 drivers at 4.6, 31st or worse, we have 4.2. Guys that start on the front row that finish in the top 15 in points is 0. So anybody starting from the pole and outside pole, absolutely eliminate from your lineups. They just don't show up. And our point average total for Talladega is 37.4. The average starting spot to make the top 15 is 19.1. We don't have any dominators that end up making the optimal, but we have on average 11.2 drivers who make the top 15 are place differential. So this is absolutely all about place differential and all about finishing position. The finishing position will come with the place differential. This is like clockwork. This is one of the easiest and hardest to figure out. It's real easy to eliminate the top 10 starters. But then from there, you've got 30 drivers to potentially choose from on who can make an optimal lineup. So it's a little bit like playing the lottery, and there's a little bit of skill that's involved. It's a lot more luck than anything. So either way, let's get into our driver breakdown for this race. Ryan Blaney, 10,500. Once again, pricing should not be something that you're concerned about because we're going to eliminate a lot of the expensive drivers because they qualified up front and they just aren't able to capitalize when it comes to DraftKings and the way DraftKings does their points. Brian Blaney is $10,500 on DraftKings, the most expensive driver, which is significantly, it's $1,000 less than the most expensive driver last week, which was $11,500. So that right out of the gate, DraftKings also knows that there's no real reason for dollar amounts other than you have to have something that eliminates you from taking what would be considered the top 6 drivers. But even then, I honestly, I think DraftKings could do away with pricing when it comes to these super speedway races because it really does not matter. So, just my personal opinion. But Ryan Blaney is starting in the 8th position. There was no practice. They literally unload this morning or maybe yesterday, go through tech and qualifying. They put it on the track. They run for 1 lap. Whoever has the fastest lap, that's your starting spot. Then they do have a second round of the top 10 fastest cars, which once again, I don't really care about because there's not enough DraftKings points. Now, I guess if you're concerned about maybe who's going to potentially be the fastest in the race, you care about a little bit, but for the most part, nope, not really. But Ryan Blaney, 10,500, he is starting in 8th. Yep, top 10. Starting top 10, it's not going to be somebody that I'm even concerned about. Even if he was starting 11th or 12th, it would be maybe type driver. But starting in 8th, yeah, not that really that interested. And then if we start to look at the rest of it, so this line here is coming from this grouping here. So the last 5 races at Talladega show these stat lines here. So what has Ryan Blaney done at Talladega? He does have 1 win in the last 5 races, 2 top 5s, 2 top 10s, 3 top 20s, a 17.1 DraftKings average. So remember, it's going to be tough to have a really high DraftKings average at these tracks, but remember, we're looking for at least a minimum of 37 to be in the top 15 in points. Now, this changes dramatically from starting position. So if Ryan Blaney's always starting in the top 10, more likely his DraftKings average is going to drop down. So I'm not overly concerned about this. The average finish for Ryan Blaney is 20.2. This could be something significant because what we're looking at is his starting spot to average finish, 8th to 20th. It's a negative place differential. So probably not somebody we would want to look at anyways. But the average finishes, because of the chaos of these type of tracks, typically is not all that important either. And then a 19.1 average running position. So inside the race, he averages a running position of 19.1. The last race at Talladega, which was, 6-7 months ago, in the spring of this year, Ryan Blaney finished 39th. Can't remember where he started, but he finished 39th. In his full race history here at Talladega, he has 21 total starts. He does have 3 wins, which might be the series best. We'll have to kind of compare as we go through this. Brett Keselowski might have more, but Ryan Blaney with 3 wins over 21 total starts, which is actually pretty good. But once again, starting 8th, once we put it on the calculator, you'll see that even with a win, it's probably not going to be enough to overtake some of these other drivers. He does have 6 top 5s, 8 top 10s, 15 top 20s in the last and his full race history of 21 starts with a 15.5 average finish. Okay, this is the much more important page to pay attention to now that we kind of have a history of what Ryan Blaney has done at Talladega. He has a starting spot of 8th. He has an average finish of 19th. This average finish comes from, so this is the same track. So Talladega, last 5 races. Once again, we saw that just a second ago of a 20.2 average finish. He has a best finish of 1st and a worst finish of 39th. Then we look at the trend line, and this is the last 5 drafting style tracks. So this would include Daytona. So both Daytonas from earlier this year, the one Talladega race from earlier this year, and the 2 Atlanta races that they ran earlier this year. He has a best finish of 1st and a worst finish of 40th with an 18.2 average finish. So when we average the 2 of them together, we have about an average finish of 19. Really didn't change a whole lot. The trend line kind of stays the same. So if we put it on the calculator here, he is starting in the 8th position. What does he need to do? Remember, the optimal lineup is about 55, and the top 15 DraftKings points is 37. So on this calculator, this takes into account how many points they get for their finishing position, how many points they get for fast laps and laps led. So finishing position, and pretty much everybody's going to get between 3 to 5 fast laps. So this is whoever is the driver on lap, any particular lap. We'll pick lap 67. Yep, I did it. I've got a 14-year-old kid, so 67's like a big deal. So whoever is fastest on lap 67 would get a 0.45 point DraftKings points for having a fast lap. Well, we're going to give Ryan Blaney 5 of those, and then his finishing position starts at 45 points for 1st and goes all the way to 1st, or 1 point for 40th. So it's spread out a little bit different. You get more points for finishing in 1st. I think it's 45 points for 1st, 42 points for 2nd, and so on. So this calculator takes all of those factors in. So what does Ryan Blaney need to do to at least be 37 points to the good, or even better, 55 points to the good? And if they're 55 points to the good, it's somebody we definitely potentially want to put in our core. And if it's 37 points to the good, then that's somebody we may want to put in our core or sub-core. So this is why starting in 8th is kind of like, well, maybe he's somebody we would want to take. But honestly, at his price tag, that's going to put him in, but probably not enough. Once again, salary's not that big of a deal. So, as you can see, if he finishes 8th, he's barely in the top 15 anymore. If he finishes in 4th, he's still not in optimal range. If he finishes in 2nd, he's still not in optimal range. He would need to have, honestly, the 10 fast laps is kind of a real high-end mark. And then leading 20 laps would be a really significant amount at Talladega. Well, that would put him, even if he finished in 2nd, that barely puts him into the optimal lineup. It would put him there, but it's really, really risky, especially when his average finishes are 18.2 and 20.2. And he finished 39th in this race last fall. So could he do it? Absolutely. He's got a win here. He's got 3 wins at Talladega. Sure, it's possible. What's the likelihood? Not so great. The likelihood, he's probably going to finish maybe in 20th. Well, if that happens, even if he has 10 fast laps and 20 laps led, he's now at 20.5. He's way outside the top 15. So that's why I say starting in the top 10, it's very hard for these drivers to make enough points to be in the optimal lineup or even the top 15. So next in line, we've got Joey Logano at 10,200. Once again, pricing's not going to be that big of a deal. It's much more, where is this driver starting? Joey Logano starting in 16th. Now let's look at his average finishes. In the last 5 races at Talladega, he has got 1 top 5, 2 top 20s, a 22.4 average finish with a 12.5 average running position. Not great. He's got a 9.5 Draftkings average. Oh, if we're trying to get to 37 as the low bar, we're far, far away from that. He did get a 5th place finish here in the spring race, so just kind of keep that in mind. That was probably one of his better finishes if he has a 22.4 average finish. In his full race history here, he is tied with Ryan Blaney at 3 wins, but 33 starts, an 18.7 average finish. So put him on the calculator. There is a little bit more room for place differential here with Joey Logano. He is outside the top 10, first off, so that automatically kind of puts him as somebody that I would want to potentially keep into my lineups. His average finishes, though, are not great. So the last 5 races at Talladega, it's a 22.4, and the last 5 drafting style tracks, it's 23. So average finish in 23rd. Starting at 16th, if he finishes 23rd, it's no bueno because we'll give him 5 fast laps and no lap slide. Even though he'll probably Joe Logano, Ryan Blaney, Austin Cindric always tend to lead some laps. We'll give him 10 to be on the gracious side. If he goes and finishes 23rd, it's 16.75. Now, let's say he does lead 10 laps. Let's say he does have the 5 fast laps. How far up from 16th would he need to finish to at least get to the top 15? Well, if you finish where you start, not enough. If you finish in 12th, you're there. So actually 13th may actually put in there. 13th place finish if he leads 10 laps and has 5 fast laps. If you take any of those away, it changes it. It now needs to be a top 12. And that's just to make the top 15. That's not going to make the optimal. And Joey, you almost need, for that price tag, you need to have him be in or at close to that optimal line of 55. So what does that need for Joey Logano? 5th place gets close. 3rd place gets him there. 4th, outside, just on the outside looking in. So a top 5 finish for Joey Logano would put him there. Well, he finished 5th at the spring race here at Talladega. I would put Joe Logano kind of as a sub-core. So somebody that I would rank somewhere between 16th and 21st or 22nd. It's kind of my thought process for Joey Logano. Definitely will have some interest in him because he does have that potential to go and lead 20 laps. That definitely kind of puts him in the optimal lineup with a 5th place finish. In fact, he could probably end up finishing 8th won't do it. 7th, close. So 6th. So 6th place or better, lead 20 laps, and that puts him there. So I don't mind some Joey Logano. He fits the criteria. He's not starting in the top 10. He does have an opportunity to finish pretty well here. He's also, I didn't put the points totals. Let me pull that up so I've got reference to it. So I think that's also slightly important when it comes to how hard these guys are going to be to race. So Denny Hamlin, let me just move this over here. Denny Hamlin is locked in with his win from last week. Kyle Larson is plus 35. So not completely safe, but potentially safe. Christopher Bell's plus 20. Chase Briscoe is plus 15. If we're looking down below this, we're starting to get closer and closer to an almost must-win type situation. William Byron is minus 15 to the cut line. He needs to at least finish this race and not get taken out. All these guys are in that boat. Chase Elliott, minus 23. Joe Logano, minus 24. Ryan Blaney, minus 31. These guys are going to need to, number one, have good finishing positions and stages and be still running at the end of this race. That's sometimes a little tougher to do than said. So the one thing I always forget to do is make sure you hit the like and subscribe button. Hit me up in the chat. Who do you think is the best opportune driver for DraftKings this week? Or who do you think may win this race? Who locks themselves in potentially to the next round going to Martinsville? So, and we'll talk about me, my schedule, and Martinsville. It gets a little convoluted this coming week with I go to the Martinsville race, and I go to the truck race, I go to the Xfinity race, I go to the Cup race, and I'm also hanging out with my best friend. So this video definitely takes a big hit when it comes to it, but I still will do videos. More on that to come later. But Joey Logano, I would put him as a sub-core. I'll have some ownership in him, meaning I'll probably have somewhere between 10 to 20% ownership in Joey Logano. All right, next in line here, William Byron, $10,000, starting in 13th. William Byron's got a really, really good average finish here. I think he might have the best average finish of all the drivers over the last 5 races, where he's got 3 top 5s and 5 top 10s. So the last 5 races here, he's finished in the top 10 with a 4.8 average finish, which means he has not been collected in the big one. So if we're looking at odds and probabilities, there's probably more of a chance that William Byron gets collected, but William Byron got collected last week. William Byron really needs a good finish this week at Talladega to kind of help him have some points going into Martinsville next week. So do you think he's safe because he's finished in the top 10 the last 5 races, or do you think it's past due for him to have trouble at Talladega? I honestly think he might have trouble at Talladega. But he does have probably the best average finish of all the drivers at 4.8 over the last 5 races here. He finished in 4th in the spring race earlier this year. All right, with that being said, let's put him on the calculator. What really concerns us is, what does his points value look like? We'll zero that out, and we'll give him the token 5 fast laps. If he finishes in 5th, starting in 13th, 49.25. Probably not enough to make the true optimal lineup. Would be close, but probably not enough for his price tag. So probably a top 3. Nope. Top 2. So first or second place for William Byron. Probably going to be a fade off of William Byron. I might run him in a small handful of lineups, and those lineups would be much more team and manufacturer based. So I do know that the Hendrick group will always watch out for the other Hendrick cars. They will also look out for cars they are partnered with, which would be the Chevrolet teams, which would also mean the Spire Motorsports teams. They have a technical alliance with Spire. So they'll have some help out there. So it's very important to have, when you're building your lineups, you want to think about also, not imperative, but also one of the factors to think about is pairing drivers only at super speedways with other drivers from the same team and or same manufacturer. So, William Byron with a Chase Elliott, a Kyle Larson, an Alex Bowman, or maybe even a Carson Hocevar, or any of the Spire Motorsports, or then even any of the Chevys would be kind of a play that you could go with, because the Chevy cars are going to help the other Chevy cars push their way to the front. Where I've also seen, like Kyle Larson running in 3rd, he's stuck behind a driver. Brad Keselowski comes to mind a couple of times where Kyle Larson did not push Brad Keselowski to a win when he probably could have. In fact, he intentionally backed off slightly so that way the Ford would not get the win, because there was a Chevy on the outside who did get the win. So it's just an understood practice. If you're a Chevy driver, you take care of Chevy drivers. If you're Ford, take care of Ford. Toyota, take care of Toyota. But don't help the other manufacturer go get a win. It's kind of the underwritten rule. So it's not really team orders. It's just kind of hey, Chevy helps write my paycheck. I'm going to help a Chevy driver. Ford does not write me a paycheck. Probably not going to go help a Ford driver beat a Chevy driver. So just something to kind of keep in mind when you're building lineups. Not imperative by any means, but there is a little bit of that does happen, and you have to think about it when you're building lineups. So when I'm saying I will have a small handful of lineups with William Byron, it's like running a Hendrick lineup. So running the 4 Hendrick cars all together, I would put William Byron in that grouping still because he's not starting in the top 10. So it still fits, especially if I think William Byron can go and get a second place finish. Chase Elliott. Speak of a Hendrick driver, Chase Elliott, our potential most popular driver again this year. $9,800, starting in the 25th position. So absolutely in play. Lots of place differential potential here with Chase Elliott. And if we look at his average finishes, it's a 14.2. And his average Draftkings is 38.4. He does not have a top 5, but does have 2 top 10s and 4 top 20s. He finished 7th here in the spring race. He has 2 wins out of his 19 total starts here. So he does know how to get to the finish of these races. So let's put him on the calculator. If we were starting in 25th, we've got lots of room to run. But we don't lead any laps, and we get 5 fast laps. I'm pretty much going to take most of the laps led away because it's very, very random who leads laps. It's also very random who has fast laps. But across the board, most everybody, including BJ McLeod, who's going to be in this race, will have probably 2 to 4 fast laps. Probably won't lead any laps, but he'll have some fast laps. But either way, Chase Elliott, starting in 25th, if we get to his average, which is 14.2 at the last 5 Talladega races, and at the last 5 drafting tracks, it's a 10.6. So average those 2 together, we get about a 12th place finish. Starting in 25th. All right, what does it look like if you get to 12th? 46.25, safely in the top 15 in points, probably not enough to get to quite the optimal. But if he goes and finishes in 8th or 9th place with 5 fast laps, puts him in the optimal, or really, really close to being in the optimal lineup. Enough that if you have him in your lineups, it's probably going to be pretty good for your day. So Chase Elliott absolutely would be one of the drivers I would have in my top 15 of drivers. Kyle Larson, 9,500, starting in 19th. I tell you what, until about a year and a half ago, maybe 2 years ago, Kyle Larson was like the Black Plague when it came to super speedways. As good as he is at everything else, he just always seemed to get into somebody's mess. But recently, he's been running much better. He's actually got a 15.4 DraftKings average, 30.2 DraftKings average, and a 15.4 average finish. Much better. I remember when this used to be a negative number. He used to have negative DraftKings averages when it came to super speedways drafting style tracks. But he did finish 3rd here at Talladega early this year. Remember, he is sitting, 35 or 45 points to the good when it comes to the playoff point total to make the Final Four at Phoenix. He's sitting in a pretty good spot, especially if he can go and get some stage points early in this race in stage 1 and stage 2. Pretty much you're shoot in for the next round if you, I think, have 55 or I think it's like 50 or 55 points headed into Martinsville. It's not a pure lock. You would just need to pretty much finish the race or at least get some stage points, and he would get locked into the Final Four. So Kyle Larson's sitting in a really good spot, but Kyle Larson also does not need or want to be involved in an early wreck or caution. So he'll be slightly cautious when it comes to it, but Kyle Larson's only got 1 speed, and that's full throttle most of the time. So he's going to try to work his way to the front. He's going to try to get some stage points early. And then if something happens in stage 3, he's already got those in the bank. So, which also means that if he goes, what I'm just trying to say is I think Kyle Larson's probably still a decent play. He's not going to just points race, which means you just run towards the back, wait till the end, and you're happy with a 20th place finish. I think he's going to still try to race and try to get a win. All right, so Kyle Larson. Yeah, I mean, the trend line at Super Speedway's drafting style tracks is a 9.8, which is just crazy. His worst finish is 20th. So, kind of like his teammate in William Byron, are we sitting in a ticking time bomb that's just waiting to go off, or is the trend line actually going to hold? Well, that's part of it. Sometimes you win and sometimes you don't. I guess it was at Almond Joy. Sometimes you're the nut and sometimes you're not. All right, starting in 19th, we've got some place differential potential here with Kyle Larson. Once again, I'm not overly worried about pricing. That you're not going to be able to start the 6 most expensive drivers, nor would you want to. But starting in 19th, let's say we don't lead many laps, and we get the token 5 fast laps. So 19th to 3rd, we get you 59.25. Well, that's more than enough. How far back can he go? 5th? 6th place would be really, really tough. But, so a top 5 finish for Kyle Larson, and he's in. So I would kind of put him very similar to Joey Logano or a William Byron. I would put Kyle Larson at the top of my sub-core list, or potentially even the bottom of my core list. So what I'm saying is probably 20% ownership with Kyle Larson is probably what I'm kind of looking at. It's not the safest play in the world. It's not a bad play. He's not starting in the top 10. He could be there at the end. Austin Cindric, though, at $9,300, is starting in 4th. He finished first here in the spring. I want to show you in the calculator that even finishing in first does not put you in the optimal lineup. In fact, we'll go look at the optimal lineup from the spring race here, and guess what? Austin Cindric's not there. He won the race, and he does not make the optimal lineup. How does that happen? Well, it's real simple and real easy. In fact, I could tell you what he got. 1 second. I'll tell you how many points he got with the first place finish in the spring race. At Talladega, spring race, for Austin Cindric, he got 53.2 points, which did not put him in the top 6 drivers. So keep that in mind. All right, but he's starting in 4th, and even if he finishes in first, let's say he leads 3 laps and has 5 fast laps, it's only 51 points. It probably is not enough to get you into the optimal lineup. Sure, is it going to probably, if you had him in your lineup and it fit and everybody else did well, sure, you would still win money. But it's just very, very difficult for him to really be there. And you're also taking into account that he's going to finish in first. So he's got an average finish of, 17.6 at Talladega and 22.8 on other drafting tracks? So an average of 20th, and you're just going to randomly call him out to be first? Is it possible? Sure. Probable? Probably not. So if he falls to, 7th, it's 37 points, so it's top 15. But you have one accident, one bad pit stop, one shift in how the drafting of a particular line works, and you fall to 14th, it's 22, and you're out. So I am a fade on Austin Cindric. He's starting in the top 10. That's pretty much all that's going to need to be said. Holy smokes, UVA just took the lead with they won. Holy crap. I thought Washington State was going to end up winning. I'm a Virginia Tech fan, so I am not a UVA fan. And I thought they were going to lose. But good for them. They pulled that one off. Notre Dame's up on USC, and I think the Tennessee-Georgia game is actually pretty close. Ooh, Oregon's beating up on Rutgers. Not surprised by that by any means. But back to Talladega and racing. That is your college scoreboard update at this point. Alabama's up 23-13. Still in the third quarter? It looks like. Yeah, they still third quarter. Just into the third quarter. Plenty of time there. Go Vols. Or Roll Tide, whichever one you happen to be a fan of. I don't really care. Denny Hamlin, $9,100 starting in 17th, our winner from last week. He's locked into the Final Four. So what does that mean? It means he could go for a win, and if he happens to wreck, he's like, oh well. But he's not going to run in the back, because that doesn't do him any good. So he's going to go for a win. Is that good or bad? I mean, starting in 17th, that's definitely some room to run, but if we look at his averages, it's about 20th. At Talladega, it's an average finish of 17.8. His best finish is 4th. He's got 2 wins out of almost 40 starts at Talladega. Not the best odds, so 1 out of 20. So 5% of the time he finishes in first. He's starting in 17th. The average is 20th. Now, how far up does he need to go? I mean, it's going to be very similar to a Kyle Larson or William Byron or Joe Logano. Not going to lead a whole lot of laps. Let's give him the token 5 fast laps. I mean, 11th place finish doesn't cut it. It's top 15, but it's not optimal. It would need to be 4th place or better. I mean, sure, possible, but probably not. So, Denny Hamlin will be pretty much the subcore really ends up starting to make up the 12th or 13th to 20th place starters. Then the group beyond that really become the core. So Denny Hamlin is probably going to be subcore because, sure, he could go out and win. He could get a top 4. If he does that, he's in. So I don't mind running some Denny Hamlin. Not going to be a huge, it'll probably be 15-20% of my lineups. Christopher Bell, $9,000 starting in 7th. Once again, we're starting in the top 10. We don't really need to beat this horse to death. It's just so hard and difficult for them to make it. Now, what did we say Chase Elliott was at when it came to points? I don't know why I erased that screen. Playoffs. Christopher Bell is plus 20 to the cut line. So he just needs a good, solid finish. He doesn't really need to wreck, which means he's going to be perfectly fine if he finishes 12th in this race. Well, finishing 12th in this race does no good for Draftkings. In fact, finishing in 2nd doesn't even do any good. 7th. Oops. No laps led. We'll give you the 5 token fast laps. It's 47.25. It's not enough for optimal. It is in the top 15, but I'm not willing to take a chance on somebody who just needs a 10th, 11th, 12th place finish to probably have a decent shot at moving on to the Phoenix finale in 2 weeks. So I will probably be a fade off of. In fact, I am going to be a fade off of Christopher Bell. It's too hard for these drivers to make optimal or even top 15 in points. Tyler Reddick at $8,800 starting in 15th. He has an average finish of 13.4. He does have 1 win here in the last 5 races, but all 5 races he's finished in the top 20. So pretty consistent with finishing in the top 20. Once again, just like Joe Logano, William Byron, Kyle Larson, Sure, finish in the top 20, maybe a 10th place finish, probably still is not going to be enough starting in 15th. So it'll be a sub-core for Tyler Reddick. We'll put him on the calculator so we can just reassure ourselves. Let's see. If he goes and finishes in 10th, it's 41.25. It's not close to the optimal range. It is top 15 in points. So, but at $8,800, it's probably not going to play super well. But if he goes and, let's say Tyler Reddick goes and gets a 3rd place finish with 5 fast laps, done leading laps, it is optimal. So it's worth taking the chance because there is a chance that he gets a top 5 even at 51 points. If he does that, maybe he leads, I don't know, 8 laps? Yeah, I mean, that puts him real close. That's close enough for me to probably be okay with having him as a sub-core group. So I'll probably have him kind of like the rest of the guys that are starting in the teens, somewhere in the probably 15% range. So Brad Kozlowski starting in 20th at $8,600. Brad Kozlowski is extremely good at Talladega. He has 6 wins in his career at Talladega with 33 total starts. He has an average finish of 14.2 for his entire career at Talladega. He does have, in the last 5 races at Talladega, 3 top 5s, 3 top 20s. So twice he's finished outside the top 20, which probably means he wrecked. But an average finish of 16th. Not too bad. Brett Kozlowski is also extremely aggressive when it comes to super speedway drafting style tracks, which do one or two things. You either finish top 3 or you don't typically finish. So it's a really good if you do and really good if you don't. And he's just very aggressive. So starting in 20th, I mean, very similar to what we just talked about. I'll have some ownership, probably 15% or so. Because if he goes and finishes in 5th with 5 fast laps, he's definitely there. He finishes in 10th, he's still in the top 15. So, yeah, probably somewhere 15-20% ownership. I don't mind taking some Brad with the one-off chance that he ends up having a really good race. So, no problem there. Ricky Stenhouse Jr. Oh, boy. Has an average finish. Okay, we just talked about Brad, who's really pretty good at super speedways with a 16th place average finish. The best we've seen so far is William Byron with a 4.6. Ricky Stenhouse Jr., who typically is like $5,500, is $8,500 this week. And there's a reason for that. He's got an 11.6 average finish at Talladega. He does have 1 win in the last 5 races. 4 times he's finished in the top 20. He averages 58 Draftkings points at these races. He almost never qualifies well and ends up finishing close to 12th. He finished 14th in this race last year. With all that being said, Ricky Stenhouse Jr. will probably be one of the highest owned drivers, probably somewhere close to 40%. And 40% for a super speedway racer is extremely high. So just take into account you either play him and you're with the field, or you don't play him and you're not with the field. So he's going to be 45% owned, very expensive. It's not a secret pick. It's not stealth. It's if he does what Ricky Stenhouse does, he's going to be very close to optimal. Because like I said, average finish of 13th, starting in 37th. Just go finish in 13th, Ricky, and it's 56.25 points just to get his average finish. Anything better than that is putting gravy on top of it. So that's why Ricky Stenhouse Jr. is a pretty good pick for this week, and why he will be pretty heavily owned. But I will probably have him as one of my top drivers. He will be one of the top 5 drivers, definitely core. Not even close to being sub-core. He will absolutely be one of my core drivers. I'm just going to play the field. It's plain and simple. Will I run him any more than 40%? No, probably not. Because it's Talladega. It's a super speedway. All it takes is one guy with one slip of the hand, and you'll wreck 15 cars. And starting in 37th, that could easily be Ricky. So, and Ricky, just like Brad Kozlowski, is probably one of the most aggressive. He's top 5 aggressive when it comes to super speedway races, and that's why they win. It's also why they wreck a lot too. Kyle Busch, $8,300, starting in 3rd. Great qualifying spot for Kyle Busch. He's getting an incredible crew chief next year with Jim Pullman, so hopefully all of the things will start to correct for Kyle Busch next year, and maybe he even goes and wins this race this year. But once again, starting in 3rd, there ain't no way I'm going to take the potential chance of a guy that has spun almost every race this year to potentially go and get a first place finish and lead, 20 laps with 5 fast laps? Because that still doesn't even get you to 55 points. When your average finish at these things is 22nd over the last 5 average. So, good job on Kyle Busch for a great qualifying, but I have no interest in taking any of that. Ross Chastain starting in 24th. Ooh, not good. His average finish is 27th. He's got 1 finish inside the top 20 in the last 5 races here. He does have a win at Talladega. It was kind of fluky. It was kind of, I think it was 2021, kind of the tail end of the COVID crap stuff that was going on. So it was just wonky. It was weird. But you just have a win here. Sure. But either way, starting in 24th, I mean, this is kind of a riskier play, but I mean, Ross is pretty good at these. There has been decent at these things. He's also been bad at these things. He's aggressive like Brad and Ricky Stenhouse are. The problem is typically he ends up not doing well with it. So he probably needs to be a little less risky. And he might finish a little bit better. But starting in 24th, let's say he goes and finishes in 10th. It's 50.25 points. Pretty close. You know, a top 10 would probably get him real close to being in the optimal lineup. In fact, an 8th place finish would probably put him there. So, starting in 24th, I don't mind taking some Ross Chastains. Is he probably top 5 of my core group? No. He's probably somewhere in the 20 to 25% ownership range. It's kind of where I'll fall with Ross. Chris Buescher, $8,000 starting in 14th. And we're starting to see a little bit of a pattern here. So starting in the top, he's starting 14th. Probably might see, if I've got a Chris Buescher starting in 14th and a William Byron starting in 13th, it's 1 spot of place differential difference between the 2 of them. I think USC just took the lead on Notre Dame. Oh boy, we got a game. But William Byron has a average finish over the last 5 at Talladega of less than 5. Chris Buescher's worse than 20th. So if I'm choosing, I'm going to choose William Byron starting in 13th and Chris Buescher starting in 14th. Either one, it's still potential, but I will probably be kind of definitely subcore on the Chris Buescher play, but probably like 10%. Where like William Byron, I might be 15%. So it's not much of a difference. Yeah, so let's say he goes and gets 5th. It's 50.25 points. I mean, that's not a bad day, but we're also talking about trying to get somebody who has an average finish of 19th to finish 5th. The probability is not great. The possibility is there, but the probability is not great. Chase Briscoe, broken record here. He is starting in second. He has an average finish of 15.4 and 16.6. And for the playoffs, he is plus 15. So I expect Chase Briscoe to run stage 1 and stage 2 extremely hard, which could be good or could be bad. We've talked about that for all drivers. But starting in second for DraftKings just doesn't play real well. So let's say he has 5 fast laps, and because he's starting outside pole, we also saw the outside. Anybody starting in the front row has not finished even close to the top 15 in points for the last 5 races. So that's also another reason I have no interest in Chase Briscoe. But, let's say he does lead 20 laps. 49.25. I mean, it's not a bad day, but it's not really close enough to be in the optimal. It's close, but you're also asking for Chase Briscoe to finish in second when he has an average finish of 18th. 15.4 Talladega, so a little bit better. Bubba Wallace, $7,700, starting in 10th. He does have one win here. It was a while ago, but he does have a win here. He does races these super speedways typically fairly good. Notre Dame just retaliated with a touchdown. Holy crap, that was fast. Wow. That was really quick. But Bubba Wallace, $7,700, starting in 10th. I honestly don't have a whole lot of interest here. It's at the very bottom of my sub-core list. It probably is honestly outside because his average finish is 21st at these things now. They just always seem to be tied up in something. But even if he goes and finishes in first, leads 10 laps, has 5 fast laps. I mean, that puts him there. But do we think Bubba Wallace is going to win? I mean, if you do, then put him in a lineup. If you think his average finish is closer to where he finishes at 21st, probably not. So if you start where you finish, I will leave him at 50, but it's definitely 37 for the top 15. That doesn't change. It barely puts him in the top 15 if he finishes where he starts and leads 10 laps. So I'm going to be a fade off of Bubba Wallace. If it burns me, it burns me. But I'll stay with the same thought process that the top 10 just doesn't finish in the optimal, or really even close to the top 15 in points. So Daniel Suarez, $7,500, starting in 26. Interesting news about Justin Haley, who we'll get to in a second. Justin Haley got cut from Spire Motorsports. Daniel Suarez is looking for a spot. Spire Motorsports has lots of international ties and would love to have another international style driver on their roster. I think Daniel Suarez is pretty much a shoo-in for the number 7 car next year, and I think it probably would end up being a pretty good fit for Daniel to be over there. Now the question is, does it help? Maybe, maybe not. I don't know. There's always that potential. So we'll see. I mean, Spire loves some controversial drivers. They've got Carson Chaos Hocevar in their stable. So, but Daniel Suarez, $7,500. And when I say they have an international owner, it's Spire's got a lot of ownership through Gainbridge, which is a multinational billion-dollar company. They own part of the Dodgers. They own, I think, part of the Lakers. I think they own lots of different sports teams and organizations and all sorts of stuff. So they definitely probably would love to have Daniel Suarez in their stable. So I expect Daniel Suarez to get the nod for the 7, but we'll have to wait and see. Who else was there? Was somebody else that I thought might end up. Oh, Ricky Stenhouse Jr. may end up being over there, but I think Ricky stays where he's at in the 47 car. I think they're perfectly happy with them, and they get to race in the Cup Series. So Daniel Suarez, $7,500. Once again, pricing is not going to be that big of a deal. 16.8 average finish. He's starting in 26. There's definitely room for Daniel to run. This is really, honestly, is the second driver well, third driver. Ricky Stenhouse was the other one, but Chase Elliott, Ricky Stenhouse, Daniel Suarez, all definitely in that group. What did I say? Starting 26. So put on the calculator. Let's see how good it potentially could be with his average if he finishes 17th. That would be, one more. 37.25. Top 15. But anything better than that, go get a top 10 and you're above the 50. And at $6,700, the optimal line does drop down a little bit, which would be somewhere between probably 45 and 50, but we'll leave it at 50. So he definitely fits into this criteria pretty well. He'll probably end up being on the back end of my core driver group. So 13th would probably be the worst, and he could potentially still make it depending on how lineup construction ends up falling. So Daniel Suarez, definitely on the top of the sub-core, bottom of the core grouping. Ryan Preece, $7,400. Good for Ryan. He qualified really, really well. I have no interest in taking you now because you qualified in 5th, and your average finishes, which aren't bad for Ryan Preece, 18.8, 16.6 total. And out of the last 5 races, in fact, he has a second place finish here in the spring that ended up getting disqualified for an infraction of some type. I can't remember what it was, a height rule or something along those lines. But even if he goes and finishes in second, it's not enough. Let's finish in second and lead 10 laps. It's 49.75. I mean, it ends up being close, but your averages are about 17th. So top 10, it's just a rule of thumb that I have. I don't start anybody that's starting in the top 10. Plain and simple. All right, Alex Bowman starting in 11th. Okay, I said no top 10. But Alex Bowman's average finish over the last 5 races at Talladega is a 14.6. Only once in the top 5. 21.8 average finish total. And if we look at the last 5 drafting style tracks, it's a 16th, starting 11th. So honestly, he's probably going to finish about where he starts at, I mean, sure, anybody could have a good day, but we'll just go with the averages here. It's 34.25. How far up can Alex Bowman finish top 3 and make it? Yes. So it's possible, probably not probable though. So I will probably fade completely out of Alex Bowman. I might have him in 2 Hendrick lineups. So that's kind of where I'll put him. Josh Berry, good qualifying job by Josh Berry, qualifying in 6th. When you've got an average finish of 26.7 at Talladega, and the rest of the super speedways are 26.2. So guess what that means? You're starting in 6th. I have no interest. We're just going to skip over it. I've run the calculations on these guys plenty of times. Austin Dillon, $7,000, starting in the 21st position. He has an average finish of 24.4. He does not have, of all of his wins at Daytona, he has no wins at Talladega, and only 2 top 5, 6 top 10s out of 24 total starts. It's crazy that he's so much better at Daytona than he is at Talladega. Yes, they're different tracks, but the premise is still pretty much the same. But he's starting in 21st. It's risky at best. But, he could go and get a, 7th place finish? 52.35 points top. So what does he get if it's a top 10? It's probably not enough. I will probably have Austin Dillon as a sub-core. So probably 10 to 15% ownership. Don't love it. Don't hate it. It's kind of it's a coin flip. Put him in. Don't put him in. I think it's too risky with his average finishes. But he does have some wins at drafting style tracks. Just kind of keep that in mind. He does have the potential to run those pretty well. He's kind of like Ricky. He's kind of aggressive. And Ricky Stenhouse Jr. has, 16 spots better starting spot? Oh, Alabama just scored again. They're up by almost 17 on Tennessee. Well, Tennessee's got a lot of work to do in their final quarter. Not sure that looks great for them. All right. Carson Osavar, next in line here at starting 32nd, 6,900. Ooh, we got some room to run. He's got an 18.8 average finish at Talladega over 4 starts. Never finished in the top 5, 1 top 10, 3 top 20s out of 4 starts. All right. And Carson Osavar is extremely aggressive. In fact, I think out of all the super speedways, looking back on it, and I don't put this number out there, I could, but it's just one more number. But just say my word on it, he has, I think, in fact, I could pull it up. Over the last 5 Talladega races, he hasn't raced all 5. Where is Carson Osavar has 4, and he has an average fast laps of 9.3. The next closest is John Hunter Nemechek at 7, AJ at 8. And the sample size for Austin Hill is bad, but Austin Hill has 12. But if we go back and look at all the fast laps, I mean, like who do we think might win this race? Honestly, Joe Logano. Let's just put Joey out there as well. Let's say who's got the most wins? Brad. Brad has 6 wins. So Brad Keselowski, fast laps, who's super aggressive, has an average of 4. So, and Carson Osavar is a 9.3. So Carson Osavar is extremely aggressive. So when we put him on the calculator, number one, he's going to have a potential of a ton of place differential. The problem is he is as risky, or he is as aggressive as Ricky Stenhouse Jr., if potentially not more. Yeah, I mean, most of these, like the Ryan Blaney's of the world, just they don't want to mess with Carson Osavar. Like it scares the bejesus out of them. Yeah, I mean, if we give him his average of fast laps, it's 9. If he goes and gets the average finish of 17th, it's 45 points. All you got to do is get the 13th, 14th. So Carson Osavar absolutely would be in my core. Might even be in my top 6 drivers. May not be in the next 5, but definitely top 10 of drivers that I'll take. Ty Gibbs will be sub-core, but there's always that potential. The Toyotas did end up qualifying pretty well. Ty Gibbs starting in 18th. I mean, not all that bad. Definitely have some room to potentially move up. His average finishes are not great, though. The sample size is not quite as big. It's about the same size as Carson Osavar, to be honest. But 18th, if you go and get an 8th place finish, it's 48.25. It's close to being at that 50-point mark. Like I said, probably sub-core for Ty Gibbs. Pretty much everybody starting from about 12th place through 20th will probably be kind of my sub-core. And there's a few drivers in there I don't really love. Like Ty Gibbs, I really don't love. So if I were to call a sub-core, it's a little wonky at that point. But Ty Gibbs is probably like 20, 21st, 22nd on my driver pool that I would put into lineups. Michael McDowell, $6,700, starting from the pole. We've talked about this. We don't need to overhash it. He's starting at the pole. They don't make the optimal lineups. Don't care what we do with the calculator. It just does not make the optimal lineups. So, no interest in Michael McDowell, but congratulations to him on getting the pole. He's got like 6 or 7 poles at super speedways over like the last 4 years, and every one of them he's not even in the top 20 in DraftKings points. So no interest there. I am really, really interested in the interview that Noah Gragson gave during qualifying. And he was like, yeah, I don't really care about qualifying. I want to know how my car feels, and I want to make sure my car is stable. And I can qualify literally last if my car feels good, it's got the horsepower, and it feels stable. He goes, I'll end up having a good race. Well, guess what? The same thing was said by all of front row. Todd Gillen, Zane Smith, Noah Gragson all felt the same way, and they all qualified mediocre at best. Todd Gillen starting in 27th. He has an average finish of 14.4 over the last 5 races here at Talladega. I really, really like putting the group of the front row guys all together. They're driving the Fords. The Fords do really, really well at these super speedways. These guys have a ton of place differential. I do not mind taking a lot of shots on running front row lineups together. Even if he goes and gets to 14th, it's 43.35 points. Probably not enough to really turn the needle a whole lot. But if you literally just move it up to 10th or 11th, and he's right there. So I will take some shots, definitely a lot of shots on these front row guys. So just FYI, I really, really like any of the front row Fords. Todd Gillen being one of them, starting in 27th, a ton of place differential, average finish 14th at Talladega. I'll take it all day long. Justin Haley will be without a ride next year. Justin Haley also has a win at Talladega. He's got 3 wins in the Xfinity Series at Super Speedways. He knows how to finish typically fairly well at these things. But I don't know. I don't love it. Don't hate it. It's kind of, I'm putting Justin Haley kind of in the same grouping as I do Ty Gibbs. Sure, there's some potential there, but not 100% sure. Yeah, we'll put it on the calculator. See how far up he would need to finish. I mean, he's going to need to finish top 7, top 8. We'll give him the 3 fast laps. So 9th would be close. So kind of a top 10 for Justin Haley, and he fits into the lineups. I'm going to put him as towards the tail end of my subcore. Kind of run him 10, maybe 15%. Not an all-out fade. But Noah Gragson, who I just talked about, wanting a nice, comfortable car, has a 16.5 average finish. Starting in 36, we have 20 spots of just average place differential here. He finished 6th in the spring race here. Wanted to make sure his car felt comfortable in qualifying. He didn't care where he qualified. He goes and finishes. He just needs a top 15. And he's at 50.35 points. Yeah, I'll take Noah Gragson all day. He will be right there with Ricky Stenhouse Jr. and my amount owned. I'd probably somewhere like 40-45% for Ricky Stenhouse, probably a solid 40% for Noah Gragson. He'll probably be my second highest owned driver for this race. Eric Jones, 6,300, starting in 30th, has an 18.6 average finish. They've been running really, really well at these super speedways. In fact, I think at Daytona, he and what can I think of his name? His teammate, John Hunter Nemechek, both ended up having really good runs at Daytona. I expect this to translate over just the same. I think Eric Jones is a very safe place in my top 15, maybe probably top 10 drivers. Yeah, I mean, a 13th place finish. Now that we're at 6,300, 45 points might actually get you close to optimal, but a 13th place finish or better puts him in there. So a Noah Gragson with a top 13, Eric Jones with the top 13, and then Zane Smith, front row, once again, right there with Todd Gillen and Noah Gragson. You know, if they just follow each other to a great finish, they could all three have a really good day, especially in DraftKings. Now, the Zane Smith, I might be a little less on the ownership side because he's kind of fitting right there with Justin Haley starting in 23rd. Don't hate it, don't love it. Definitely probably sub core. Not sure it's going to be full core though. So where Eric Jones, Ricky Stenhouse, Noah Gregson absolutely are some of my core drivers. I'll even put AJ Allmendinger in that grouping. Also, AJ just tends to have bad luck at these things. Always seems to have really, really good runs though. And like I said, over the last, how many races has AJ run? 4 of the last 5 races here. AJ has an 8.3 average fast laps, an average laps led of 2, so that's not super fascinating, but he does have an 8.3. So really, really high on the average Draftkings, or average laps led, or sorry, average fast laps. My brain's starting to get tired. We're an hour and 26 minutes in, and I've got to be up at like 6:30 in the morning. My son's got a 8 o'clock baseball game. Blah. And he's at homecoming right now. Ugh. He's going to be a hot mess tomorrow. But AJ starting in 34th, a ton of room to run. Finished 17th. I'll take it all day long. He'll probably be close to 35% owned. I definitely like the AJ. He's probably going to be pretty heavily owned along with Eric Jones, Noah Gregson, Ricky Stenhouse. If anybody knows what they're doing when they build these lineups. John Hunter Nemechek starting in 28th, same type thing. We just talked about it. The legacy guys ran really, really well at Daytona. Not so much at Dega earlier this year, but they've had really good runs. Willing to take some shots on it. Probably somewhere in the 20% range for John Hunter. Starting in 28th. Plenty of room to run. Get to 14th or better. And really all you need to get is about 45 points at $6,000. So gets him real close to that line. Ty Dillon starting in 29th. Oh, what an idiot move that was last week. I know Ty Dillon wasn't thinking that he did anything wrong. He should have stuck his hand out the window to let William Byron know that he was going to come into the pits. But yeah, that was just a bad deal all the way around. But he's got a 15.8 average finish at Talladega. Recently, it's only been about a 23.3, but he's starting at 29th. Plenty of room to run. Yeah, he'll be on the kind of the tail end of my core grouping. I don't mind some Ty Dillon. I think they've got a new spotter, which might be the only issue, is because they did fire the spotter because of that debacle last week by not letting William Byron's spotter know that he was coming into pits. So, yeah, but I'll keep up with some Ty Dillon. I think he's going to be perfectly fine. SVG, coin flip. He's starting in 31st. He has had decent finishes at super speedways. He's also been really bad at super speedways. I honestly do not know what to do with SVG at this point when it comes to these things. He's starting 31st. There's a ton of room for place differential. If he gets into a top 15 scenario, which means all he has to do really is avoid the wrecks, and he could be there. I don't mind taking the SVG. Plenty of place differential. Will it be core? Maybe. Am I putting him in the grouping with Noah Gregson and Ricky Stenhouse? No. Will I put him with Ty Dillon? Yeah, probably. I just have a big question mark on it, but I think there's definitely room there. Cole Custer starting in 12th. I mean, Cole runs these things really, really well, and pretty much the car's kind of set up in close to Penske. There's definitely some technical alliances involved there, but he's starting in 12th. He has an average finish of 15th. He finished 15th in this race in the spring, which honestly would not be enough. Even if he finishes in 5th, is it even enough to get there? Yeah, 5th with 3 fast laps would put him probably close to the optimal. So, I'll probably fade off with Cole Custer. I'd rather take potentially a shot with Austin Hill starting in 33rd. At least Austin Hill wins a ton of Xfinity races on these super speedways. Now, 23rd place is his only finish at Talladega. For some reason, they always seem to have mechanical issues. That's probably the only worry about the Austin Hill. And this car drives much, much differently than the Xfinity car. I'll put Austin Hill right there with, who did I just say? SVG and Ty Dillon as I don't know. They could help me, they could hurt me. Probably tail end of the core group. So somewhere in the 13, 14, 15, 16th on my ownership. So definitely not a fade. I mean, there's plenty of room for a place differential. Riley Herbst starting in 9th. You way outkicked your coverage, dude. I have no interest here with Riley Herbst starting in 9th. We're not even going to put him on the calculator. There's no reason to do it. Cody Ware starting in 35th. He has an average finish of 23rd at $5,300. We're getting into the bottom of the barrel here. That does not mean the bottom of the barrel is completely junk, though. Cody Ware has made optimal lineups before. Now, the nice thing with the next group of guys that I'm going to talk about, and it's about, what, 4 drivers, 3 drivers? 3 drivers, honestly. They don't care about they don't care about stage points. They don't care about anything else. They want to finish the race. And they know that the attrition will end up happening, especially because this is a point or a playoff race. I could easily see a Cody Ware, Anthony Alfredo, BJ McLeod, and Casey Mears all putting a pack together that, hey, we'll just all run together. And I could probably even see Austin Hill leading this pack. We're going to run 5 seconds back from the pack, which gives us plenty of time to check up if there's a big accident. And then when we get to the last 20 laps, we'll go and try to run the race hard. And by then, 15, 20 drivers are already gone. Well, if 15 drivers out of the 40 are already gone, and Cody Ware moves up to a 20th place finish, at 17, that's 45 points. He's in. That's an optimal lineup. And all it takes is one of these 3 guys. Cody Ware, Anthony Alfredo starting in 38th, and a Beard Motorsports car. The Beard Motorsports team always brings great. All they do is super speedway race. That is all they do. Now, there's only like 3 people that are employed with them, but they literally just build super speedway cars and tend to bring. I mean, Anthony's pretty young, but this was Brendan Gaughan's car forever, and Brendan Gaughan would always end up with top 10s. So, starting in 38th, a ton of room for Anthony Alfredo. Gets a top 25. He's in the optimal. Same thing, BJ McLeod, starting in 39th. I don't mind Anthony. I don't mind BJ. I don't mind Cody Ware. Don't know if I want to go with a Casey Mears because he is not familiar with racing. But BJ McLeod, average finish of 27.6. I don't love any of these guys down here. And I won't run probably much more than one of the drivers in a lineup. It's not like I'm going to stack the field with BJ McLeod, Anthony Alfredo, and Cody Ware. I may run a BJ in one, an Anthony in another one, but run them in like 5 lineups each. Because all it takes is one massive big one, and BJ moves up from 39th to, let's say, 15 cars get knocked out. And he goes and finishes 24th at $5,000. Like I said, price is not going to be a big deal. I mean, 24th doesn't quite cut it, but I mean, you kind of get what I'm saying here. 15 cars get taken out, and he's still running. 24th is probably the worst spot that he would get. So, Casey Mears just doesn't have the experience in these cars anymore. And I don't even know what number he's running. I think it's probably the 44 team. So I'll probably fade off of Casey Mears, but I could see running a couple lineups with them in it if you have to. But out of the 4 cheapos, I would probably fade off of Casey Mears out of all of them. So, all right, the guys that I really like the Ricky Stenhouse Jr. That's probably going to be my most popular play. Carson Hocevar's right there with them. Noah Gragson, Eric Jones. I really like the front row grouping of Todd Gilliland, Zane Smith. Zane's probably starting a little bit further up, but Noah Gragson definitely. I think the Ricky, the Noah, the Carson Hocevar, Chase Elliott, are probably my favorite plays of the week. Hey, there's the wife. My wife's in Kansas City. Thanks for tuning in to the end of the program. When you're setting your lineups for she doesn't do DraftKings. She has a different fantasy group that she runs. It's not for money, but yeah, you can take pretty much anybody you want for tomorrow. If you're looking for people to take, I would, because hers is not place differential. So I'll give her hint right now if she's still listening. Take all the guys that are starting in the playoffs. They're going to, because you get points for stage points, I think, or finishing positions. So, all right. Either way, the guys I do not like anybody starting in the top 10 for DraftKings. Don't even put them in your lineup. Don't even waste your time. You're welcome. Don't anybody starting in the top 10 for DraftKings, don't put it in your lineup. Anybody starting 11th through 20th, probably subcore. Run them 10, 15%. 20th on back, pick and choose. Flip a coin. It's kind of like playing the lottery. So hopefully this helps. If it does, make sure you hit the like and subscribe button. Next week for Martinsville, I will do a live broadcast probably Friday morning, really early before I head to Martinsville. And that will be a breakdown of all the drivers and who runs well, who doesn't run well, their averages, and things of that nature. We will have no information when it comes to practice, qualifying, or anything like that. And then, so that'll go up. It'll probably be about a 45, 50-minute conversation about the drivers that I like for Martinsville, the drivers I don't like for Martinsville, where we're sitting in points, and those types of things when it comes to the playoffs. The guys that are completely out, or the guys that are desperate to get in, what they may be able to do, what they might not be able to do, that type of stuff. So that'll be Friday morning. And then I will do a Sunday morning, very abbreviated 20-minute probably video of who I like for DraftKings and who I don't. I probably will not have practice speed data like I normally do because, number one, I'll be going to the truck race, the Xfinity race, and then the Cup race, and hanging out with my best friend. And honestly, I'm just not going to put that much time into it. I will still give you all the data that you need, who was fastest in practice, who to avoid, who potentially could do well, and those types of things. But it'll be a 15, 20-minute quick video, so that way I don't leave everyone out in the dark who does like to come to this channel. But do not expect full breakdown of practice speeds. If I have time, I'll put it together, but don't fully look for that to happen next week. And then we will be one race to the finish at Phoenix, and we'll do a full-on breakdown that Saturday night, 2 weeks from tonight. And then we'll be done for the year, and then we'll pick it up for Daytona the following year. But I appreciate everyone tuning in. Make sure you hit the like, subscribe button. And to the wife, text or call you in a little bit. All right. Good night, everyone. Have a wonderful rest of your weekend, and good luck at Talladega. Bye.
Gentlemen, start your engines. 40 cars coming to life.
Can you still take the field? Yep. Love it. Get a good deep breath. Get ready to roll here. Only about one thing tonight. Getting the W, so gotta be around the end to do that. Get ready to roll tonight, boys. Let's go have some fun.
Don't get me any more fired up than I already am.
all the way to the checkered. You're fine. Nobody's got to run. Checker 5, baby! Really proud of you, man. Drove your butt off tonight. We had the best car here, bud.
Yeah, boys. Way to rebound. Great job.
Great job, bud. Really good job. Appreciate you hanging in there with us all weekend.
What a weekend. Good job. Thank you.